I was much more into the buttering of the floor in front of the fridge. That's when you can actually watch and be like,
somebody
what happened?
fell and got hurt? You're an asshole.
Don't wear high heels to a fucking party, man. You're gonna
What
slip
are you,
on the floor.
fucking Dennis the Menace? I put butter on the floor and people slid across.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, a show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about George. George went 9 episodes with only 1 season on ABC. They were talking about episode 1, which is called Pilot, originally airing November 5th, 1993. To get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, all the boys, Joe, Ferg, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
Hey-yo.
Hey!
Bubba, you set a trap for your sister, that toilet. That is my favorite line reading in the history of every episode we've done. Let me say again, Bubba, you set a trap for your sister, that toilet.
Had to make sure we had the full crew together for an episode like this, so we're finally covering George. I know we've talked about it for a while. Happy Boxing Day, everybody.
Happy Boxing Day.
So in honor of Boxing Day, we're doing this sitcom starring George Foreman.
Is that a thing everywhere but here?
Boxing Day, just about. It seems like, but it's a lot of countries.
Everywhere where the English Empire touches.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what Boxing Day is, right?
Yes, English.
No, but it's when you honor old boxers.
I believe so. Or that you have to box someone
You have
of your
to honor
choice.
your old underwear?
Oh, I honestly thought it had to do with like putting your old Christmas boxes away.
No, it does have to do with like actual boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like giving boxes to
Yeah.
people like post Christmas. It's there's a lot of different things to it. I'm sure like our
We shouldn't stay
European
on this
Canadian-
too long because it's just gonna highlight how dumb we are. So let's just
I mean, in fairness, it's a holiday we don't celebrate. So
yeah.
Yeah, like Guy Fawkes Day.
Yeah, so George, the George Foreman sitcom, I vaguely remember this existing. Definitely, if I saw it, I was too young to remember it.
I think you mean George Foster.
I want to get into that.
Yeah, we got a lot to say there. You're fucking
Before we do, have any of you guys seen or even was aware of the show?
No,
I'm aware of the show.
No.
no, were you before?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was
I
not.
remember
I'm aware
the
of the
show
show I
existing.
just watched.
Hey, to be fair, sometimes Gordo is not aware of the show he just watched. So.
I mean,
That's
today was
true.
definitely on the line there.
This show got advertised a lot during TGIF, which is why I remember it, but it was on Saturdays, so I never saw it.
Joe wasn't allowed to watch the TV on Saturdays.
No, that's my Children of the Corn family's day. We can't watch TV on Saturdays.
IMDb has this one clocked in at a 4.5. Rotten Tomatoes has a tomato score of 0, but I didn't know how many actual votes were in on that. No audience score.
Should get 100 for throwing 100 tomatoes at it.
Did you tomato score Sister Toilet?
This is also a show that you can only watch on YouTube. It's not on any streamers at the moment. I doubt it ever will be, but you never know. And yeah. So, Ferg, you already mentioned it right away. So this is a George Foreman sitcom where basically George Foreman plays a fictional version of himself, but not completely because it's George Foster, not George Foreman. And it's like, why?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
And he's
Does he
got
not have the
10 less
rights?
children.
He loves to put his name on anything possible, and he won't put it on the show.
The Foster Grill fights fat.
Listen, the only thing I can think of is that the network didn't want his name attached to it.
It's
Because
called
then-
George.
It's George, yes, but you know what I mean? Like they don't want him because if it's George Foreman, he owns the rights because it's him, right?
I don't know exactly how
I
that
don't know.
works, but
I don't either, but I think that was probably more the case in what was this 1994 that they were worried about
maybe.
things like that.
Better show. His name is George Foster, but he's the foreman at like a factory.
Foreman George.
Foreman, comma, George Foster. I would watch that show.
So the plot of the George Lopez show?
Is that an airplane factory they worked at?
So George plays George, which is it's funny because I don't know if you saw, but one of the producers of the show is Tony Danza.
I did see that at the very end.
Tony,
yeah.
you be better, please.
So from his own brain, he's like, yeah, why wouldn't he be George? That's his name, right?
And he's a boxer because I'm a boxer.
I wonder if that is why he got behind this show, because he is a boxer.
Probably.
I mean, I'm sure that has something to do with that. What point in Tony Danza's career are we in '94? That's
Oh, we're at the bad Tony Danza show.
Tony Danza show didn't start.
We're at
yet.
Angels in the Outfield era.
94, are we done with Who's the Boss?
I don't think so.
Might have just ended.
No, 94, we're done with Who's the Boss, yeah.
So are we in Hudson Street?
So yeah, maybe Hudson Street. Yeah, and if any of you guys want to know why we are so versed in our Tony Danza knowledge, go back and you can listen to all 4 weeks of our extravaganza, which are all available in our archives.
And if you weren't aware of why the backstory was that Tony Danza does die in Angels at the Outfield, George Foreman punches a cigarette down his face every single day for 40 years. And unfortunately, that is a cause for death.
Director's cut. And real quick, if anyone wants, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to our social medias. Follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok. That's where you can find all these clips and pictures and stuff that we post throughout the week. As well as go on to where you listen to your pods. Make sure that you subscribe to us, hit us up, talk to us, all that stuff.
You guys aware that this is the same year the George Foreman grill came out?
That I did not know.
No.
Wait, wasn't it the Hulk Hogan grill, brother?
You know what? After years, I believe that story was proven to be another Hulk Hogan lie. Yeah.
I found that out recently, and I was so upset because it's such a fun story.
That was like a fun fact that, yeah, it would always go, Hulk Hogan almost got that, but he didn't pick up the phone. Yeah, no, Hulk Hogan just lies about everything.
Also, I don't know if you guys ever owned a Foreman grill before. I've had a few.
I have.
I don't anymore. They've sold over 100 million Foreman grills.
They're so good.
And he's made over $200 million.
Good for him.
yeah. It's
I
wild.
used to have one. They were, because they were so easy and convenient. But much like they knocked the fat out, they also knocked the flavor out if you're cooking a burger, because every last piece of fat is drained out of it.
Listen, it was the 90s version of air fryers. Everybody fucking had one, and everybody used it for everything.
Yeah.
But I will say this, though. People, all of us, right? We grew up in the Northeast where you get wintertime, it's cold. You can't go grill a burger. In February, if you really want a burger, I would take one off of the Foreman grill over like frying it in a pan. You know what I mean?
Air fry it. I'm telling you, air fry works for that too. Yeah.
We all have air fryers now. That wasn't a thing then.
Does Foreman do air fryers? It seems like a natural parlay. I trust him.
I feel like that brand is probably like the parent company probably just exists without attaching his name to anything at this point.
Is it not called the Foreman grills?
I mean, like other people make Foreman grills. Like I've bought better versions of Foreman grills where you could like take the plates out and clean them and all different stuff.
Well, they eventually did that with the actual George Foreman grill too.
But I think they were too late on because I had a Foreman grill that we threw away because like eventually they were throwaways, right? Like eventually they got too greasy, too gross. You had to buy a new one. And then they figured out other companies beat them to the like you can change the plates out thing. But eventually too, you're just washing greasy fat. Like the thing of a grill is you scrape it and then you don't think about it ever again, even though it's gross. You know what I mean? Like having it in your house, you have to really clean one.
Company is Empower Brands LLC.
And it looks like, yeah, you can still get George Foreman grills on Amazon. So
Oh, cool.
I have one somewhere in this house.
it's funny. When we were younger, we were like 18, 19. We went to New Jersey for Hellfest, and I brought my George Foreman grill with us because we brought it into the hotel room. So we're like 18 years old and we're like cooking cheeseburgers in the hotel room.
Did you set off a fucking fire alarm?
One went off. I don't know if it was us or not, probably.
No, that wasn't from us.
Wasn't from us. The hotel, like, there's a much longer story where the hotel had like a blackout and we all ended up partying in the lobby. But I guess that's a story for another day.
I almost got arrested that night.
Yeah, we'll save that for another day. But yeah, it started making bacon cheeseburgers.
I mean, the best kind of cheeseburger.
I'm surprised you don't put ham on your cheeseburgers. Make a real hamburger.
I mean, a hamburger?
I love ham. I love cheeseburgers. I love bacon cheeseburgers. I put only mustard on all of those things.
You sick fuck.
I don't like ham on a burger.
Mustard? Gross.
Wait, who puts ham on a burger?
Nobody.
I don't think anybody.
We were making a pun. A hamburger.
Well, we know Joe's love of ham, so knowing that he would love a bacon burger, I can only assume that he would prefer putting a slice of ham on one instead.
Yeah, I mean, what about Canadian bacon burger? That's ham.
Also, Ferg, you don't like mustard?
Not on a burger.
I'm not a big mustard guy.
I only I've hit the point. We've talked about this before, but I only put mustard in a burger now. I don't put ketchup. I don't put anything else. Just mustard.
No, ketchup.
It is delicious. But I will say though, whenever I go to a restaurant and I order a burger and they're like, "Can I get you anything?" and they bring out the little cup of ketchup for your fries, I'm like, "Can I have some yellow mustard?" They're always like, "You fucking savage!" Like you always get the side eye look. Like, "Yeah, okay, buddy."
Why is that? That's new to me. Why is that weird?
I don't know. It's weird to me. I love it. I've always people usually put mustard and ketchup. So why is that weird?
I do pickle, onion, ketchup, mustard. I subbed out mayo for mustard a while ago.
I love mayo.
I do too. Mayo and mustard. Mayo and ketchup. That's a good combo.
It is a good combo. Once they mix.
You're supposed to put the spicy, like ground mustard on a burger. That's
No.
a burger mustard.
No, that's gross.
No, that's a hot dog mustard.
No. That's not a hot dog.
Dijon mustard goes on a hot dog with relish.
Not Dijon. No. Who eats
Jokes on
Dijon?
all of
Are
you guys.
a
You guys
psycho?
thought we were covering the show, George. In reality, we're just going to talk about the George Foreman grill and everything.
It would be more interesting.
There is more substance to this conversation than there is to the pilot episode of George. I'll just throw that out there. But let's roll on.
This isn't the most complex show, but I do want to get into it. So,
No, it's not. This entire show is summed up in fat, bald, fat, bald, Sidney Poitier, fat, bald. That's the entire fucking episode.
I knew you'd love the Sidney Poitier line.
But I love that because they literally sum up like, hey, we're copying this, right? Like that's exactly, we're like throwing out there, this is exactly what we're doing.
So to get into the actual show, opening scene, we have George walking into his living room, holding like a tub of ice cream in hand. His daughter V's like already sitting in there wearing boxing gloves. As he's walking in, he like looks at his shelf. He sees his like heavyweight championship belt. He does a little flex for no reason and looks at himself. And then he just goes, "I am in love with myself." This is a really weird first line.
Welcome to this show. Also, he has the best living room ever because it has a fucking pool table in it. Holy shit.
It's a good use of that back area.
Better than an alcove with Joey in it.
Not now.
It's constant entertainment with an alcove with Joey in it.
Word?
Gotcha.
So it's he says, it's time for my morning workout. And he goes, 1 and 2 and recline and eat. And he just jumps into his chair and starts eating ice cream.
Outside of me hating this, has anybody ever eaten ice cream for breakfast in this room before? That's a fucking... who wants that?
Yeah, I was going to say Ferg definitely has.
Ferg
I
makes
could see
sense, yeah.
Gordo may be doing it.
I don't have a sweet tooth like that, but it's not beneath me.
No. I don't even wake and bake. Like if I wake and baked, maybe. But like I don't even do that.
What's the thing? I can have ice cream for breakfast because I'm a fucking adult.
It's like me with like when people are like, I wake up and I have a beer, and I'm like, I'll know I'm an alcoholic when that happens. When I wake up, I just want coffee. You know what I mean? Like I'm never like, it'll be good right now, some strawberry ice cream. That's never entered the equation.
Nope, agreed.
Yeah, that's gross.
His daughter walks up to him right after that, and she's like, "All right, let's go the distance." He's like, what, like 5, 6 years old? I'd peg her for.
Has to be, yeah.
Too young to act.
Yeah, but she was so sweet. But she's doing the Muhammad Ali routine, the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Muhammad Ali, who beat George Foreman.
Yes, and that's the Rumble in the Jungle. By the way, the Rumble in the Jungle. Do you know how many people watched that live? The estimated number of people, the legit estimated people for that?
No.
6.
1 billion.
That's crazy.
1 billion estimated viewers worldwide. This was in 1974.
Well, there were so few TV channels and it was broadcast across the world, that tracks, right?
So like crazy numbers.
What's crazy about that now is that I doubt the Logan Paul Mike Tyson fight got 1 billion viewers, right?
No, but it did very well. But yeah.
And that's the biggest boxing fight in probably 30 years.
Unfortunately, probably true. But
Manny Pacquiao right now was like, what about me?
Listen, that speaks more about boxing in its current state than it does about that fight. But
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, it says something when the UFC was like, we'll buy wrestling. And they're like, do you want to buy a boxing company? And they were like, nah, we don't want to do that.
We'll buy Slap Fight, though, whatever it's
We're
called.
slapping each other on fucking TBS. Awesome. Good guys.
I don't know how Slap Fight makes money, to be completely honest with
It does not. There's no way in hell that creates profit.
Because how could you watch a whole, like, those work well as a reel? You get a few seconds of it, you go, oh, cool.
Exactly.
But
Like-
you watch that as an entire event, you're like, oh my God, this must be.
You know why I don't like it? And I'll tell you why. Because I will watch somebody in UFC or even in boxing get their clock cleaned, no problem. It's the whole defenseless part of the slap fight that really like makes it hard to watch. Like hands behind your back, no way to defend yourself, just getting hit as hard as you can in the face. It's sick, and I don't understand why it's...
How are all the concussion people not against this one?
That's what I'm saying.
I think they are. I think they definitely are. But I think the difference is, like, think of Jackass, right? Because, Nick, to what you just said, right? Like, that entire show was basically, like, watch somebody defenseless get hit and hurt. But it was humorous.
Yes, this isn't even funny, yeah.
There's no funny in slap fighting or whatever. This is just fucking weirdly barbaric. I'd rather watch, I mean, I like the early UFC, but like, I'd rather watch like some dude get kicked in his face and his teeth get flying out in a competitive fight than someone just get slapped with his hands down.
Yeah, in the UFC, if you're knocked out, it's because you didn't properly defend yourself or you had a misstep.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, yeah, some people have like, you know, like an iron jaw and some don't. And that's not, I mean, it helps, but it's not like a skill. So if you can just take a slap better than other people, you're a champion just because of like genetics. Like that's it.
I've got a 9-month-old baby who has no control of her hands and does this all the time. And I get slapped in the face all the time. And I will shed a tear like at least twice a day and be like, I'm fine. I'm okay. If you walked up, any one of you walked up and slapped me, I'd probably cry so fucking hard. I can't believe people are signing up to do this.
We know Chris Rock took it like a man.
Chris Rock did take it like a man. I'd also take this moment to once again say, fuck you, Will Smith. How dare you?
The MMA, have you guys seen the MMA that people are dressed in like medieval gear?
I have. Only
I
on
have
reels.
not, but that is very much your lane.
Yes.
I do know that there's a weird MMA fake like porn sex thing where it's like they like grapple around on the ground like they're trying to fight and all of a sudden it's like which I think is like who is jerking off to that? What a weird specific fetish that is.
And there's Joe. That one extra thing that was just not in the same line. at
That
all.
is what I am here for, my friend.
From slap fights to I don't know how you got there. But
He's got him in a chokehold, McMahon.
Oh, George, huh?
like the Harlem Struggle.
Speaking of a chokehold, he's got that ice cream in one, huh?
Don't be getting all capricious on me.
So yeah, so George is sitting there with his daughter, and she's like, "You gonna sit in that big chair again?" He's like, "You sound just like your mama." She told me to say it. She also told me that you can't have ice cream for breakfast. But she's not my mama. Like I don't know, for whatever reason, that one did get me when he like leaned over and started eating.
I'm not gonna lie, I'll call them out when they come out, but there were like a few genuine lols for me in this one, and I was a little mad at myself, but I laughed out loud a few different times.
I will say the one of the George Foreman himself, I think, not a great actor, but he's like undoubtedly endearing.
He's
Yeah.
charming.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. I will give that. Yeah.
And that's how he sold America those grills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Especially his family. George.
Not to get back into the George Foreman grill too much, but the idea of like putting a celebrity name on it, and especially George Foreman, who like is obviously a famous boxer, but does adding his name and having him do the infomercials, is that what makes it become like this global thing versus just a
100%.
popular like
Yeah,
versus
for
any
sure.
other infomercial item? Does he really
Yeah.
like turn the needle that much?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just look at the. Actually, this is the opposite, but they made the Mr. T rotisserie oven, and it's, oh, this is delicious. And nobody bought it, and it went out of
Yeah.
business.
Okay, so here's the thing about the George Foreman grill, though. I think the main point about why it's popular is the fact that it doesn't suck. It actually works.
It's a quality product, which we talked about.
it's the rare pitched product that works.
Sparked it for sure, but I think the fact that it's a valuable
Yeah, like does
product,
George
actually,
Foreman successfully sell you that same rotisserie grill? Like the
yeah,
rotisserie,
probably not.
like,
No.
But remember too, like, don't forget this. Remember when we were kids around the same time too. Like we were young, so like we knew he was a boxer, but we would have seen him 50 times a day on the Meineke commercials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Haney.
Right. So he was so present, almost like OJ with the Hertz.
he was definitely one of those celebrities who helped write like the playbook that like the Shaqs of the world, and a lot of them followed suit. Like my playing days will end, but I can still make revenue as a personality post my career.
Not to take away from George Foreman, but I feel like this is way more about him having probably a really great agency representing him.
Sure.
And like
Oh,
giving
yeah.
him all these opportunities.
He made all that money.
But also good for him too for like going out of his comfort zone and being like, fuck it, I'll try a TV show. Like you have to give him props for going for it, you know?
Yeah.
He's in the chair, and that's when the maid walks in. Nanny maid, right? Juanita.
Yeah, Mrs. Sellner from Mrs. Doubtfire, the person who gives us the reason for hello, help is on the way.
I don't know if I've said this on here, but for years I thought that hello was a toodaloo.
Yeah.
And was like corrected as an adult. And like I was like one of those hills I was ready to die on until proven wrong.
The last season of Curb Your Enthusiasm came out this year, so we like rewatched all of it, and I forgot that her last role actually is in the very first season of Curb, where she plays Mary Steenburgen's mom.
Oh, I was gonna say first, it had to have been because I think she passed like 2001.
Yeah, it's like Curb season 1. She's in it, and she's like a big part of the storyline towards the end.
She walks in and she's basically reprimanding George, like, "What is your children seeing you eat all that junk food for breakfast gonna do?" Like, oh, it's going to tell him that their daddy's a fun guy. And then she's like, "You're going to be a ton of fun at this rate, Tubby."
You're fired.
He's like, I'm a millionaire and you suck. Fuck you. You're fired.
No, I mean, I think that takes from the Fresh Prince page of the sassy.
This is very much, yeah. This is Jeffrey.
And he's talking about, I actually really like this line. He's like, "Juanita, I lost 4 pounds this week." And she goes, "Look behind you. You'll find them."
I did laugh at that. Yep.
I did, yeah.
I say this is the start of the harping on this, though. It's
a lot. I mean, they definitely go to the same few jokes.
By the way, for a man who's not very fat.
Yes, that's my big problem here is George Foreman is like technically overweight, right? But like if you ever do one of those like BMI index things, like everybody's overweight. Like it's insane. He's not
this
a
is
big
fatter than I ever remember him being, though. I'm not saying he's like obese or anything like that, but I don't remember him being that thick.
I mean, he's also like 6'4".
He's a big dude, yeah. The only thing that makes that work is when they cut to in a minute, they'll cut to the like theme song, and the first thing they show is him looking like so fucking in shape, you know what I mean? Where it's like him in like the Olympics, and you're like, okay, well that's like a guy who's like in amazing fucking shape.
It's the next thing that happens is that intro, and the intro was fine. It's just a couple clips of him. Well, it's not a couple clips of George Foster. It's a couple clips of George Foreman boxing, and then clips from the show. And I thought the song ruined the whole intro.
Also, the song is called Papa's Theme.
Yo, that theme song is terrible.
Yeah.
Michael Stanton. I was trying to look it up. I could find the name of the song, but I couldn't really find much else about
This
it.
song could win if we did like an S1E1 worst theme award. It would be up. It would be in contention.
The song is also like, if you told AI robot to be like, write a song for the 4th of July, it'd be like, America, I love you. Don't fuck up the country. It's so fucking, like, just so easy. But this dude, like, worked with, like, Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye and a bunch of people. So he's, like, a pretty well established, like, composer and, like, keyboard player. And this whole song is pretty much all keys.
It just, it didn't work for this show. Yeah, it didn't fit the theme of the show.
Up there with "You Are So Beautiful."
It's not as bad as that.
Yeah, no, that was bad.
Hey, George, you got some kids and you're fat. Hey, George, you got some kids and you're bald. Like, that's what
So
the
wait,
show
wait.
needed.
Green light.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Does that make his kids foster kids?
The kid from The Wire is mad at you. Dooba-doo.
Like, what should I call myself? Hey, what are you eating over there? Oh, a bananas, Foster. All right, I'll go with that.
By George, I think we've got it.
From that intro, next scene, George is still in the chair. He's talking to his wife, who's like getting ready to head out.
His wife, who is Barbara from Abbott Elementary, that we have covered previously.
Oh,
Hmm.
I was full disclosure running behind. I didn't have much time to like double check a lot of these actors. Not that there was like too many to
There's
check.
a few in this that have
She's
done a bunch of
such
other things, but
Timu version of Harriet Winslow, like sassy, make fun of your husband. Like
This is not her best thing. She's great in Abbott Elementary.
she's
She was good.
amazing in Abbott Elementary. She's one of my favorite characters.
And we're coming past this Boxing Day. We're just past the Christmas season. The newest Christmas episode of Abbott Elementary is maybe one of the best episodes of that entire show.
I gotta watch the new season. It's been in my queue for a while.
I gotta continue watching that show. We watched the pilot for this, and I did want to continue, but I never did.
It's one of those rare shows that continually gets better.
Pre-intro, last thing we saw before the intro was him being called fat for eating ice cream. Intro, very next scene is now his wife just making fun of him for being fat and eating ice cream.
Don't worry, the ball jokes will come soon.
Yeah. Wait for it. It's on the way.
You know what? Good for him for signing up to be a fucking punching bag for this show.
Literally.
Because he could have taken himself too serious and been like, I'm the greatest, and like, shows all around him. But he lets everyone fucking rip on him the entire show. Fat jokes, ball jokes. And he just doesn't take himself too serious.
No.
I'll give him credit.
He's also like one of those guys, though, who's like a handsome bald guy, too. He's like a Jason Statham who's like, what are you going to come fuck with me? Like, I don't give a shit. I look good the way I am.
Fucking George Foreman, bitch.
Yeah, go fuck with George Foreman.
So he's telling his wife his plans for the day, which is just kind of sit there and read the catalog and buy things like a sock organizer. And that's when the kids run in and they're fighting over an alleged prank that the daughter thought that the son was pulling on her with the toilet. Like, what was it? He was making a jungle for his G.I. Joe. I don't exactly understand what was going on here.
So what I think happened is I think he did the old cellophane wrap over the toilet seat, but it's never really elaborated on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just yelling at each other. I couldn't really make out what was going on.
At one point, it's like, you put the seat up, though. It's like, so that's what made me think, like Ferg said, the cellophane thing. And I guess that would make it steamy and jungly for G.I. Joe. General Hawk would have a spicy little day for himself.
That's true. It smells like piss in here.
It gets to a point where he feels like he has to reprimand, but he doesn't like feel comfortable. So he's like, you can see it in his face. It's like, go eat your breakfast before I do.
I like that line.
You know, once the kids leave, him and his wife start kind of continue to not argue, but they're kind of going back and forth about, you know, his lack of doing anything these days. And basically how like all he does is sit around on the couch. He's not going to the gym anymore. He's gaining weight. It's tough because he's probably like in his mid 40s.
He's 42. They actually say it.
So, okay, right. So he's in his early 40s. He's not that old, but it's a weird dynamic because like you're still like retired. So like you have to like do something. Like it's not like the normal person. Like you can retire. We're going to retire like, you know, moments before death. And then you just kind of like lay out for
89 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you're an athlete and you retire and you still have like half your life ahead of you, like you have to, I guess, like maintain like some sort of activity.
I mean, he won his last world championship at 45.
I remember watching that live.
Yeah.
That was like a huge deal when that fight happened.
I mean, when this show got canceled, he fucking went like, I should start fighting again. Like he started fighting again like immediately after the end of the show.
George, what got you back in the ring? Well, my sitcom didn't work out.
ABC didn't get behind my sitcom, so.
This was when we find out that he has a company though, like George Foster Investment, but he runs the company. Like he just has people who do the work for him. So he's not like retired. He has a company, but it just prints money for him basically.
I think this is very good use of exposition where he's like, I made a lot of money fighting. I've got eggheads who run this company for me. And why would I go down there? Because I'm a dumb fighter. They're smart people to make money for
nerd
me.
dweebs and something.
Yeah, he runs through the gauntlet of all the things to make fun of people.
Egghead computer dweebs.
Yeah. And also like egghead is a great, totally lost term. Like no one says that anymore. Like that egghead on his computer and like every 2-year-old looks up like, what'd you say about me on the computer? Like it's a totally gone thing.
This flagged with me too, because this was the first time that we hear their last name's Foreman, and at that point is when I was going, wait,
Not Foreman.
Foster.
Oh, Foster. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do that because not only is it, you know, the same first name, but the alliteration of the second. But yeah, when we find out it's like Foster, you go, wait, I just don't understand because I'm hearing he's like, oh, Foster Industries. Like I'm like, well, what's that? And then you come to realize that's the character's name.
He didn't want to be himself.
But he is himself.
I understand that.
Does that mean though that there's a foreman at Foster Industries?
Hey.
Possibly, depending on what they do. This is also weird because as the conversation develops between him and the wife, she's like in between all like the tubby jokes is also like buttering him up huge about like all his accomplishments. It's like I can't tell like where exactly she sits.
She's a bit of a cock tease here, though, because she's definitely just like, to him. And he's like, do you want to stay home from school today and suck my dick? And she's like, nope, I'm going to school. He's like, what are you doing? Like, but she lays it on to him like she wants to do it. And then she's like, I'm going to go to school now. And he's like, well, my day's ruined.
I honestly don't understand her character because she's like the noble teacher, but then she's like, oh, stay away from these kids. They're lost to society. Like, don't even try, George. Like,
yeah, she's not like noble about it. Yeah, that's.
Is she a teacher or a principal?
Thought she was like a guidance counselor.
I think she's a guidance counselor. Yeah.
All right, the fact that none of us know for sure is weird, right?
That's a problem.
I don't think is it ever stated. You just see her at the school, but you don't.
I thought there was like a line that kind of offhandedly mentioned it. We'll get into it when we get into it. But yeah, here it's so it's kind of the way Joe laid it out. She definitely was like giving him vibe, but I think it was to try to like get his mojo up a little bit too. You know what I mean? So he'd be a little bit more inspired to move around. But she's hyping him up. She's talking about, you know, all his accomplishments and, you know, winning titles and all this stuff. But it was kind of like right on the heels of like making fun of him. So it just seemed like a weird, like back and forth thing.
It's, I think, one of those problems of this show where it's like, there's no definition of some of these characters. We're questioning what she even does for work, right? Like it's a little lost. Like the Juanita comes in again, like they throw a lot at you. I always think of these shows, the way I do my notes, I do them in like sort of paragraph chunks per scene. So there's a break and I kind of keep it going. And like this paragraph chunk is way too long. Like this is too much for a first scene.
I did like the line he told her when they were talking about all his like championship fights, and he said, I fought your mama for the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yeah. Did he become the most beautiful woman in the world? He won that.
Thank you, Ferguson.
Everybody else just get a visualization of George Foreman
Yep.
beating the shit out of some old lady.
But with like blush on, like I'm so pretty, I'm so pretty.
He's got the wig on. That's full drag.
Again, better show, would watch.
While he's trying to get her to stay home from school that day, she's like, no, my battles are out there at the middle school. And it's
Me too.
It's shown to us already that this is a school that has a lot of like troubled kids. And he's going, oh, those kids aren't all as tough as they just act it. And, they talk the talk, but they don't actually walk the walk. He's telling her how she doesn't like recognize this kind of stuff because like she grew up rich. She's like, I didn't grow up rich. And like, will you stop saying that? Like, this is this thing you always must get her for. He goes, did you not have two parents and a roof and food? She's like, yes, I did. Then you were rich.
I think this is less of a indictment on her and a like George grew up tough. And like the character makes more sense to me if she was like actually a rich person and now she's trying to give back and he's trying to like ground her to like where he grew up from.
If we're gonna give this show more credit than it deserves, him saying things like that to her lines him up with these kids that he ends up taking in later because they look at him a certain way just because he has current wealth. So he looks at his wife as like having all these things because he grew up a
what
certain
they're
way.
going for. Yeah,
Sure, but like it doesn't make sense. It makes more sense if she was actually rich. If she's like, why are these kids in my living room? He said you sent them here, which also, by the way, we'll get to that. But there was not enough time for that conversation to actually fucking happen.
Like a reverse Rocky 3. Like he's like,
happy birthday, Georgie. Happy birthday, Georgie.
Yeah, like maybe it just would make more sense if she didn't work at the school. Like the way all this stuff laid out.
Or she volunteered there or something. Like she went like one day a
So
week.
there was like a more of a, like an opposition makes more sense, when this stuff unfolds.
I don't mind her working at the school. I just wish she was a little more compassionate to the kids, and maybe George was like, "No,
Yeah.
they're all lost."
Well, that's why if you're going to have opposition, it doesn't make sense for you to have the role that you have.
Yeah, because she seems more like a warden, right? Where she's like, these fucking lost souls, we're just shuffling around until they're out of here and they'll come back again. Like, it's not like she's like, I'm trying to make their lives better and more enriched. It's a weird dynamic.
that's when you add another boss character that's like against all the kids. Not
But it is
making
a
his
tough
wife.
school. It's like, 'cause this is the way she's telling us. Today's like thing that she's doing, her initiative is turn in your knives lunch hour. That's not like a good thing to have at your school.
I will say it again, we talked about earlier, like To Sir with Love, Lean on Me, Class of 1984, The Substitute, right? Like it's like a genre, right? Like Blackboard Jungle, like all these, like the kids are tough and the teachers are trying their
Dangerous
best. Whatever.
Minds.
Dangerous
helped.
Minds, High School High, like a rhinestone. God, oh boy. I will mention John Lovitz again later, by the way.
Stand and Deliver.
When they go Stand and Deliver, when they go to D'Angelo later, you're like, that kid would have been kicked out of the school. Possession of guns, like, he gone. Not, they don't let him back in after that.
The thought of all these knives in the school too is like George telling his wife, "Hey, like, do you need to work? Like, why don't you just stay home with me? Like, you don't need this job. You spend like 50 hours a week there." And, she obviously, because of his situation and money, like, doesn't need to, we do find out that she does it because she's passionate about it and needs something to do to get through the day, which I think, again, kind of like lends itself to.
Though.
That's why it's why it's weird.
It's contradicted by what
Yeah.
we see. Yeah. Like, she should get a job at his company or something like that. Not be, if she wants to just be like, I don't want to be a bum at home. You can work anywhere. Don't work there where you hate the fucking kids.
You hate children? Don't work at a school when you hate children. I think is like a pretty easy line.
So she heads into the kitchen right as Juanita's entering the living room again.
You got one lump or two? Oh, I can't not think of it.
She makes like an offhanded comment because when Maggie was leaving, it's like, "Oh, I'll see you for dinner." And Juanita walks in and goes like, "Oh, I'm sure he'll be sitting right here." And that's when he gets to be like, "Juanita, sometimes I think about driving you to the ropes. I mean, working your midsection." He's like shadow boxing. And she's so sassy. She holds her hand out and goes, "I'm shaking."
This is the most useless character I've ever seen on a TV show, maybe. She does not need to exist. She adds nothing. I'm sure she does more after. I mean,
She's
throughout
sassy
the
maid.
She's a sassy version of Alice from Brady Bunch.
They're going for the Jeffrey, yeah.
Or Jeffrey, yeah. But Sam the Butcher never came and then was like, "Stop talking about my wife that way," and then got stabbed to death by Daddy Brady.
Sam the Butcher came, all right.
That blue outfit had stains.
Well, yeah, he's a butcher.
I can't even. All right.
Ann B. Davis, one of those weird actor names who, like, I'll never not, because she's always the last one of the Brady Bunch, where it's like they show all the kids for each family, and it's like, and Ann B. Davis is Alice. Like, I will be my deathbed, be like, Ann B. Davis as Alice. Like, that'll be the last thing I remember.
This has nothing to do with anything, but because the Brady Bunch came up, I just got that. One of my favorite clips that's like floating around the internet now is, I don't know what the context was, what it existed for, but it was all these famous singers doing "We Are the Champions," and it was like a Brady Bunch type setup, like on the screen. And the funny part about the video is Usher definitely thinks he's in the Alice spot, so he looks in every direction, but he's not in the middle. It's such a dumb fucking clip, and it makes me laugh every time I see it. But
No, he's just looking around for Diddy, making sure he don't pop up.
Did you burn that list?
So after the whole "I'm shaking" thing, the next scene we see George, and he's entering like the main hallway at the school that his wife works at. And right when he walks in, there's the two girls walk by, and
I fucking hated this.
I thought they were talking about some girl, and they're making fun of her, and the girl's like, "She looks so ugly that it made my eyes hurt."
You got the most 90s hat ever.
They also cut across too to just George standing there from behind wearing Zubas, and you're like, "What are we doing?"
He loved those. Also, just real quick, did I miss where we are, or did they not mention it?
They don't mention it.
Okay.
Oh, it's like geographically?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
If I'm guessing from every other show that happened around the same time or movie that was serious, South Central
New York,
Los Angeles.
Chicago, or Los Angeles.
I was
Yeah.
going to say Detroit or Chicago.
One kid does have a Detroit Tigers shirt on the whole time.
I was
right?
going
Like,
to say,
got
there was a
cursive D.
Detroit Tigers shirt.
So regardless, he's walking through the hallways, and you have like the two kids who see him, and they're like, "Oh, is that George Foster, world heavyweight champion?" It's like, "What would he be doing here?" And it's like, "Oh, I heard he's Mrs. Foster's husband." Like, well, I guess like when you think of the namesake, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it?
I know it's been mentioned earlier, but this was the first time I realized he had a different name.
This was the first time I got a real lol in the episode when they make the African name Roots joke.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, George they go to the well with this joke, but it made me laugh every time.
Yes, it's a good joke.
So he walks up to the two kids and he's like, "Hello, gentlemen." And like, "You George Foster?" "Yeah." He's like, they ask him if his limo broke down. He asks him, like, "You got a name, young man?" He goes, "What's it to your mama?" He goes, "What's it to your mama?" African name, right? Roots. I like that.
Fucking laughed so hard at that. That's such a great joke.
What's it to your mama? Who, by the way, is Lawrence Gilliard. I think his name is, the actor. He's been in like a bunch of things, but like he was in The Wire, which was
he's D'Angelo Barksdale. His death in The Wire is like the saddest fucking death. Yeah. Oh, it breaks my heart every time.
Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen The Wire already,
God, come on. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like 30 years old at this point.
There's I'll say watching this, and full disclosure, any of you who watch along will find out soon that like the quality on the YouTube video is like okay at best. It's watchable, but it's not crystal clear. When I first saw him, I thought and checked not the older brother to Kenan Thompson in Mighty Ducks 2. That's who I thought it was when I first saw him.
What's crazy too is that later on he's in the George Foreman movie from like last year.
Yeah, it came out like last year. Yeah.
Which I didn't see because I feel like it got very terrible marketing. I didn't know existed until today.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed until IMDbing this kid. So
I guess George Foreman cried after watching it.
I discover a lot of movies that I didn't know existed through Instagram Reels. I'm like, what is this? I've seen that. There's some like Kurt Warner show, like movie that came out.
That I'm aware of, yeah.
And I didn't know about it, and now I just keep getting nonstop clips from that.
Yeah, once it gets into your algorithm.
So Maggie walks up with like, I don't know if it was like the gym teacher or whatever. And she's like, "George?" And she's like, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Walker. This intruder is my husband." Does the gym teacher not know who this like world champion boxer is in the height of boxing days? Like,
yeah,
you wouldn't recognize him. Hey, Miss Maggie, there's an intruder walking around the hallways. Like
a 6-year-old guy's like not knowing a guy who got punched in the face by Muhammad Ali.
Yeah,
like,
especially
come on,
like
man.
that guy should know who George Foster is.
He's good, but he's no Spider Rico.
They're all tomato cans, Rock.
Yeah.
My issue is like, you have a celebrity in your school, no one's excited.
Yeah, right.
I get that this school is like an unfazed by, like they almost see him, we see later, like is like an enemy for having things, because they're all underprivileged. Yeah.
This is insane to me too, but like, can you imagine being, if you're like, eat the rich or whatever, totally understand. But like to be mad at somebody who is self-made for making money for being a fighter is way different than being like,
yeah, he's not like a Nepo baby.
Right. Like he fucking literally fought for his money. Like you can't be mad at that guy.
Yeah, go home and fight his kids. Don't fight him.
They're also troubled middle schoolers, though, so I'm not really sure they have that depth of thought.
Sure.
Also, do you guys feel fucking old when they're like, these middle schoolers, and you're like, why are these adults so angry? We're like, how old are we getting? We're like, these middle schoolers. I'm like, I would be afraid to fight one of these middle schoolers. Like, I know I'd get my ass kicked.
They're not playing their age. I mean, I don't think they are anyways.
They're definitely high schoolers.
I was looking up Lawrence Gilliard. He was born in 1971, so yeah, this was 1994.
He's 23, yeah.
23, yeah. He's 23 playing, 13?
I was going to say, yeah, because, this was 93, but yeah, we were literally in middle school like a couple years later.
I'll say this. They did a good job. They can pass as kids. It's not like Dawson's Creek where they all look 30.
Oh, yeah, they're not all like
30-year-olds,
sure.
Or Beverly Hills 90210 was like the best one ever, where it's like, they must have to shave every scene. Like every one of these dudes has a 5 o'clock shadow.
The OC, too.
So this is actually where we do get the line that kind of reveals what her job is. Because when she walks up and sees George talking to these boys, he goes, "Hey, Maggie." He's like, "You know what's it to your mama, don't you?" She's like, "We've met several times. In fact, I know him as Lathan, and the other kid's Doniell." And Doniell goes, "We're Miss Foster's favorite, you might say, counselor's pet." So I guess she is like a guidance counselor.
Guidance counselor, yeah.
My one interaction with a guidance counselor in middle school was when I got in trouble for reading the Unabombers book.
That makes sense.
Yep,
Yeah.
that tracks.
She was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Do you think I can make bombs and send them out to people? Like, do you think I have like the capability for this?"
In fairness, now look at it with an adult brain. How old were you?
6th grade, maybe, so I don't know, 11.
And what went on when we were in school at that time?
But not even just that, but like imagine being an adult
It was pre that.
and you see like an 11-year-old.
If you found out your 11-year-old daughter was reading the Unabomber's book at 11 years old, how would you feel about it?
Do you want my real answer on that, man? Do you want
I
my
do
real
want your real answer, yeah.
So those two boys end up walking off, and now the two of them get to talking, George and his wife, and she's asking like, well, what are you doing here? It's like, well, after you mentioned the whole knife thing, I thought I'd come down to the school, check things out. She's like, oh, you thought you just walk around here with your swagger and scare all the kids from doing bad things? As the conversation's evolving, it kind of turns into like, well, maybe, I could be a help here and like, do something for these kids.
I don't get why she's such a bitch about this. Like, he literally showed up with good intentions and she's a dick to him.
No, what I don't get is why is he actually there? Because she says that and he goes, oh, maybe I could. Why was he there if this is what made him realize that?
Also, too, is this the first day that he knows?
Well, the day starts with her telling him, you need to get out of the house and do some stuff. And then he gets out of the house. It's like, what are you doing out of the house?
How dare you leave the fucking house?
So, but yeah, listen, I think this show definitely lacked from a little bit of like, they didn't iron out some of the like, how we want to get from point A to point B to point C. So they kind of knew what they wanted the show to be. But as far as like getting us there, it was a little fucking messy. I don't know if they put their top writers on the George Foreman scripts.
I mean, look how Tony got the job with Angela and he's behind this show, so.
Hey, I'm here for the job. Oh, I don't want you to do it. Well, I'm going to do it anyways.
You shouldn't be having sex with that guy.
Instead of seeing her in the shower, he's asking what she did that toilet.
I don't like eggs. You're eating eggs. So through this conversation, though, somehow, he says like, oh, I could probably do something with these kids. Next scene, he has a classroom and a group of students waiting for him.
Just real quick, I don't want to backtrack, but I would like to say that one of the characters of this episode is George Foreman's smugness. And this episode ends where he goes, George Foreman versus the kids. It'll be a knockout. Look at camera, smug. And this continues on through the whole thing.
So how do we get to this point?
He would have had to have been hired by the school district, right? Like, he can't just show up and be like, I'll punch some kids. Like, you can't do that, man.
I want to talk to some of these troubled kids. All right, let's get some of these troubled kids and put them all in the classroom real quick. And go ahead. We have our empty room.
Oh, by the way, here's all of their information.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
There's folders on all of them. Guy who doesn't work at the school.
I will say, first of all, this is a 24-minute episode, which is 2 minutes too long. So strike one. But if you took those 2 minutes to have him talk to the superintendent who was like, wow, famous boxer, you want to talk to the kids? You wouldn't have this question.
Sure. I will say the video we watched, and again, I've said this is on YouTube. The last minute is like doesn't like count. Like there's like a minute of like
it's a post-credit scene with credits over it. I'm just gonna go with his wife. His wife had a lot of pull 'cause she was a guidance counselor, and use that blank statement. I don't know.
Listen, it's agree to disagree. It's not even a disagree. Like I'm sure we're all in agreement here, but this makes zero sense. But we have to accept it and move on.
Let's just pretend it's a different day. Maybe this is a week later, and we all just assume it's the same day.
Everyone just wears the same things because we've already seen almost all of these, half these characters at least. The girls, those two boys, him, his wife, they're all in the same stuff. But yeah, so now George is left alone with all these kids in the class. Somehow.
I didn't realize that was a class. I thought he was in charge of like detention or something, and they were all the bad kids.
Yeah, I mean, he tells the kids not to think of it as detention, but rather a spontaneous one-man career day. So maybe it is detention?
Yeah, I mean, according to the Wikipedia, this is George Foreman runs an after-school program.
I mean, it feels like detention starts as detention and becomes a thing. Like when they
if it's an after-school program, none of these kids are showing up. Come on.
Well, we do learn they don't have good home lives, so I think the setup is like they'd rather be here than home. I can believe that at least.
Yeah, that's believable.
He's talking to the kids, introducing himself. Instantly, it looks like a fight breaks out between the kids. He goes to like break it up. And it's, again, these two girls who are fighting are like, aren't these two like best friends like every other time you see them throughout the whole show?
Yes, they are.
They weren't fighting each other. They were jumping a kid.
Yeah. There was like another kid on the ground that they pulled up that you never see again.
Yeah, he's not the ire of anybody else. Yeah.
Or it's like a video game. They just fucking like vanish after they die.
One of these girls too named Shasta, which reminds me that we should probably add Shasta McNasty.
Shasta McNasty.
to our
Shasta McNasty,
list of episodes to cover.
Oh, didn't Gordo think Shasta McNasty was a different show we covered?
No.
No, he confused Greg the Bunny.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. It was Greg the Bunny. No, I know. I've only heard of Shasta McNasty. I don't think I've ever seen that.
I don't think I have either, honestly.
I haven't seen it. I think it's one of those shows like Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 2-3 or like Two Girls, a Guy, and a Pizza Place, where like they changed the name later on where they were like, this is too many words. I think it was
Later on, it
Shasta.
just became Shasta.
I think so, yeah.
This sounds like a soda.
Yes, it's like a soda that like Juggalos drink.
Is it a soda?
Yeah.
It
Shasta
is?
Well,
yeah.
McNasty is probably a bad name for your soda.
Grizzly Adams did have a beard.
I didn't know it was a soda. Is it like a Coke?
I think it's like a soda water.
It's like a
Oh, hold on,
Fanta,
look
isn't
at
it?
Remember when Coke was good?
No, Pepsi for life, baby.
Shasta Beverages is American. Oh, yeah, it's a soft drink manufacturer that markets a value-priced soft drink line with a wide variety of soda flavors. So it's just like
It's like Dollar General
generic
soda.
Yeah.
That was a rabbit hole, huh, guys?
I also really love the expression value priced. Would you guys say you are? I would say we're a value priced podcast.
This is one of those, we're covering the type of show that, like, listen, you got to get into some tangents here because, like, the meat and potatoes of this episode is very simple.
How many times did you guys fall asleep watching this?
It was it's still just a regular 20-something minutes. I mean, I got
'Cause I
through
fell
it,
asleep
but
3 times.
I did not fall asleep. I didn't have that problem. I didn't love every 24 minutes, but I was awake all of it.
I kept going in and out of this show.
yeah, this is him now going and talking to all the kids, and he kind of getting a little bit of one-on-one time with a lot of them. This is also when now that we're with the kids is when the bald jokes start to kick up. So we're getting less fat jokes, more bald jokes. Not that the fat jokes go away.
You know what's funny about the bald joke? The bald joke for me is wild because I feel like George Foreman would look weirder with hair.
Yeah.
Like he wears bald so well.
Is that because that's all you know, though?
No, like if you know young boxer George Foreman, like you see it in the intro, like when he was like in his prime boxing, he had hair.
But we knew him as bald George Foreman. Like him with
Yeah.
like kid and
Yes.
play hair seems fucking crazy.
Because we basically know retired George Foreman spokesperson, like that era. Like this era we're seeing right now is the George Foreman we grew up with.
Where's your hair, George? By God, I think I've lost it.
We're like all like, what, 7, 8 years old when the show came out. So like this is the era of him we know.
Also, too, some people just wear bald better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is one of them.
This is when one of the kids sneaks in, Mauricio, who's again, the quality is not great, and I know it's part of his character anyways.
so bad, yeah.
But it's played up that he's like half Mexican, half white, but he looks like full white, which is part of the character anyways.
I have a theory on this. I've brought up a few times on this show before, like one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, Blood In, Blood Out. And like the main character of that, Miklo, is half Mexican and half white. And he has a hard time assimilating with like the Mexican gang. And that came out earlier the year this show came out. And I would put money down that this character was written after somebody saw Blood In, Blood Out.
Sure, I mean it's possible. So his character acts like very, like has that like cholo. Like yeah, like that accent is full on with him.
The actor who plays him, his name is Pablo Irlando. So
So they probably found someone true to form that was probably half and half.
yeah, and he was in like nothing.
No. He was in the Skateboard Kid Part 2, a movie I fucking loved.
in
as a
what?
kid.
Yeah.
The Skateboard Kid Part 2. I still have the VHS tape that I bought at Superstar Video of that movie because it was so hard to find skateboard stuff at that point. You couldn't find like old videos anywhere. And that had like all the Birdhouse guys like Willie Santos and Tony Hawk in it. So like I loved that movie because I could actually watch skateboarding in it for like 3 minutes of it. And the other 90 minutes is this dude, like a little kid flying on a skateboard and his skateboard being like, I think we're gonna win the whole thing. And it's so fucking bad that it's stupid. It was something I loved as a kid. I don't know why.
So this kid, like, he really is half Spanish. I assume that was a lie.
No, I mean, they go over it.
No,
They say,
I know, but kids say a lot of shit. I assume that this was a lie he told his peers.
It was a big topic of conversation amongst people who already know him, and they still haven't really quite nailed it down what's going on with him.
Does anybody know what they say he's half and half of? Because I listened to
They
it
say
like 10 times.
his mom is Tex and his daddy's Mex.
Okay, that's what I had.
Tex-Mex.
Yeah,
So he's pita and fajita?
that is what they said afterwards. Yes.
I love Tex-Mex food. I just thought that was a weird fucking... I couldn't like hear it clearly enough because the rip is not very good.
I wonder if it was a quality thing, because he looked so white to me.
He definitely did look very well.
Yeah.
He might though. I mean, that happens. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, like, who are mixed race who like look way more like one parent than the other. It happens a lot. So yeah, after the kid who makes the pita and fajita comment, like the two of them start grappling for a second, and George breaks them up. He's like, "Hey, be nice. Mo can be anything he wants to be. Like, what's your problem?" It's like, which means like he still doesn't completely believe.
He
that
doesn't
he's
believe
Mexican.
him. Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
if this little white boy wants to pretend to be Mexican, that's fine. Let him play.
And I get it, because I felt the same way.
But Mo is like, "Hey, I speak Spanish." Like,
Even his accent sounded fake.
But he is affecting an accent pretty hard.
It was like Cartman doing the Mr. Cartmanez voice. Like, how do I reach these keys?
now George is going through the folder of the other kid, which is what was it? There was the other kid who was in that little grapple was what's it to your mama, right?
Yeah, Lathan, what's it to your mama?
Lathan, yeah. I mean, he's got a lot on his record. So
This is where I was saying he'd be kicked out of school. If you had weapons possession, in
weapons
your
possession,
charges,
fighting, multiple suspensions.
suspension.
And then as he's reading it, they're asking him like, and what's your purpose here? Like asking George, like what are you doing? He's like, "Oh, I'm here to make an impression." Like, it's a weird way to say that to other kids. Like, my presence is going to make you all want to be better.
He just kind of have like a highfalutin take on himself,
So the correct answer is, I'm just here to be your friend, give back to the community. Like,
And the kids are like, "You're just here because like, it's going to make you feel better about being black and rich." He's like, "I don't feel guilty about being rich." He's like,
Which is weird because does he feel guilty about being black? Because he doesn't say he doesn't feel guilty about that. It's like just like a weird line read where like a writer should have been like, maybe mention the black part too.
so he says, "I'm rich because I can read." First off, you're rich because you boxed.
Yeah.
And is he insinuating that these kids can't read? Because did that come up yet?
They mentioned it a couple times. Yeah.
There's a couple times they insinuate that someone can't read, but it was never really like laid out or shown to us that someone can't read.
I think they're like setting up the premise that Lathan can't read.
But shouldn't they show us at some point?
He's literally reading a magazine later.
Well, is he reading it though or just looking at it?
You could be looking at pictures, but like, yeah, maybe show us that he can't read before you insinuate that he can't read. And also, it's not why you're rich. You're literally rich for fighting.
That's what we talked about earlier, but like it's not like he's a tech bro. Like he fought and became rich. Like you can't be mad at that guy.
he had to read the contract.
That's true.
Rich.
I lost all my money to the energy drink company that signed me up for these fights, which I'm assuming happens now.
That's when they lay out the whole thing. Like, we know why you're here. And they're saying like, see you like, sitting around your mansion, counting your money, getting a massage from your Swedish maid, and then flipping through the remote when you see Sidney Poitier in To Sir With Love. Is that so? I don't know that film. That's the premise?
Yeah, Sidney Poitier becomes like a teacher in like a tough English school. Sidney Poitier, who comes up often in this show when we mention the movie The Jackal, when we talk about the first DVDs that Ferg and Jay bought.
They came free with the DVD player, but yes.
I will say this, though. I fucking love The Jackal, and one night I was so drunk, and we were at a 7-Eleven. Remember when 7-Elevens used to have, like, the bins of DVDs randomly?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They probably still do.
They probably still do, yeah.
I was
But
gonna
we were,
say, I
like,
think
just
they do.
still, like, just so drunk, like, at a show or something. And, like, the first DVD was just The Jackal and Mercury Rising, and I was like, take my $7. And I watched The Jackal, like, a week ago. I fucking love that movie.
You just passed on Spies Like Us, which was always in that bin.
I own Spies Like Us, so I didn't need to buy it a second time.
I own several copies of Spies Like Us because my mother would get me the same DVDs from those bins for Christmas like 5 years in a row.
Oh, I definitely had, like, 3 copies of Three Amigos.
This is slightly off topic, but don't you feel like Redbox was just like 5 years too late? Like, how big would Redbox have been if it was like earlier?
It made us sad, but I never used it, obviously, but like the red box at the Walmart.
I used them a few times. It was still like, we were still using DVDs like at the time they came out, but it was like just a little too late. Like, they could have made a gold mine if they were a little earlier, like to release.
I mean, I'm a random idiot person who still buys physical media, right? So like I bought Waiting for Guffman on Blu-ray this week because it wasn't streaming anywhere. And I was like, I want to watch Waiting for Guffman. And why would I rent it for $5? I'm going to watch it 1,000 times for the next 30
What
years.
happened, Joe? Did somebody already take out Finding Forrester?
You're the man now, dog.
No, Joe, I don't think you're an idiot for buying physical media. I think you're an idiot for buying digital media all the time.
What digital media do I buy?
You'll be like, oh, I watched this show, so I bought the whole season on TV.
Oh, you're right. Well, it doesn't exist anywhere else. If I want to watch Ghosted until they...
No, it does. It's like trying to explain this to my fucking dad. It's like this. It exists. It's findable.
But I don't know how to do it, and I want to watch it on my big TV.
You still haven't bought digital Mantis. Do you even like Mantis?
Wait, you can digitally buy it?
Sure you can. Probably on Prime.
I'll probably might regret saying this out loud, but remember in the early days we were very hesitant to ever admit if we had to like watch something on a stream, like a legal stream, like as if we're all gonna get like arrested on the spot, and now we're like, nah, whatever.
Would you download a car?
I love that commercial. That commercial is definitely the beginning of like Fast and Furious 2, where you're like, nobody wants any of this.
I tried to type in where to buy Mantis, and it just keeps showing me Petco's in my area.
You can only get like their DVD. It's from like overseas, and it's wicked expensive. Because I looked into it to get it for Joe for Christmas a couple of years ago, and I love you, but I'm not spending that much.
I appreciate it. No, I understand. Eventually, that stuff will all make its way to YouTube, and then we'll all just end up buying like the YouTube subscription with no commercials.
That's when this becomes the Mantis podcast.
Now Lathan wants to leave this classroom, and he's like telling his buddy D, like, "Come on, let's get out of here." And George's like, "No, hold on, just take a seat." And like he grabs the desk and throws it against the wall.
He took a seat.
I also love too that D wears a shirt with a giant D on it. It's like, what's his name?
D's
Like
nuts.
imagine if Belky had a shirt that said Belky. Like, what are you doing?
Name is D's nuts.
That's not the case at all.
No, we heard it. We heard it the first time.
Yeah. Once again, don't confuse us not laughing with us not hearing you.
I was like, damn, another zinger, and they didn't hear it again.
There are, though, the random fans we have reach out who are like, we think Gordo's hilarious. And you're like, okay, there is a
Get to
square
know
for
him.
every peg.
What do you mean get to know me? They'd love to.
I don't know. 35 years says otherwise.
I was going to say, maybe not 35 years, but it's great when we come into your house weekly, or your car, or your ear.
Don't be coming in people's ears.
Gordo's
Gordo.
coming
That's
everywhere.
how we're gonna lose.
I am a Google boy, after all.
George, I think I cummed it.
Well, anyways, so Lathan and D walk out of the classroom, and then it just kind of like turns into a ripple effect where like every kid just starts following suit and walking out. Like, I don't know why it turned into this, but it was basically like George tried to show some sort of authority. Lathan checked them on it, basically showing that there's nothing George can do against them. So I think for that reason, like defiance from everyone kicked in.
Makes sense.
I didn't like this because, well, I guess it kind of needed to happen, right? But I don't feel like they resolved it the right way.
It just came off awkward. Actually, I think this is another time where, we're talking transition. Like, we don't know how we got to the classroom. It makes the next scene make less sense.
He somehow rounds up all the kids. Like,
But also, if a teacher, even a teacher who works there was like, come to my house after school, you'd be like, no, out of this building. You've got no
Yeah, right.
authority.
And I will say the last girl that walks out of the classroom who goes, nice haircut, could use a buff though, and, and like runs out. That was like, that line is stupid, but can't you see one of like the Ninja Turtles saying it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like Turtles too.
Yeah, well, for sure too. Well, yeah.
pizza is okay.
I like pizza, but come to my house. Like, all right, George Foreman, Turtle, thank you for showing up. What color would George Foreman's turtle band be?
It has to be an unused color.
Yeah.
I mean, the only like color, it can't be green.
Yellow is kind of the only major color.
So like yellow is like the last color. Yeah. George Foreman's head isn't that different than the Ninja Turtles in shape.
He also will shove his head up out of a manhole if you offer him frozen pizza.
You could give him a different color blue, like they did with Venus.
Venus.
Don't love
He was
that.
light blue.
Can we commission someone to draw like George Foreman as a Ninja Turtle with a yellow like bandana thing?
Yeah, just ask AI to do it.
No AI, no bullshit fake art, real art.
Yeah, they're tough prompts to make. But regardless, after that last girl leaves, by the way, there's that last line where George is by himself in the room and goes, I took some shots, but I ain't down yet. Like to himself. Like so corny.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, that was way too
This
corny.
is just so not needed.
That was we get it, you're a boxer.
Punch, punch, punch. Okay, George, thanks for showing up.
That cuts to the next scene, and it's Juanita. She's mopping the floor in the kitchen while she has like her soap opera on. And I am 90% sure, if you go back and listen to it, I think the voice in the soap opera, the male voice, is Tony Danza.
That's a good call.
I didn't think to check on that, but
I'm almost positive. I would listen back, but I'm pretty sure. I think you would have to know that he was tied to the show before watching it to be able to catch it.
That's fun, though. That's a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah, if you're going to like just interject yourself that way.
Angela, we're not lovers. He's my friend. His name's Latka. It's like, what's the weird soap opera that's happening right now? Thank you very much.
Did we just enter the Tony Danza multiverse?
Where there's a thought that Angela thinks that he's possibly sleeping with Latka. I fucking love this storyline.
So now, out of nowhere, all these kids from the class just start filing into the kitchen. And you go, wait, what?
Yeah.
In my head, it's the scene from Old School with the band's just driving and pulling them all in.
Well, most of them get there before George does too. So you're like, what the fuck's going on?
This is my address. Meet me here in 20 minutes. Like, wait, what?
And like George eventually walks in with one, and you know, and basically like the idea is that yeah, he just wrangled them all up, like found them all out on the streets and just like, get in. We're going to my house.
Like, what changed that they'll suddenly listen to him?
They wouldn't listen to him in class where they were supposed to be, when they were supposed to be there. But now in
different.
their actual free time, they're going to just go by his house.
Like, that's probably a scene they needed to show, like him being like, hey, we're not in the school anymore. I can kick your ass. Like, let's go.
I'll punch the size of your face. It's like, okay, we'll go to your weird house, man.
Imagine it's George Foreman beating up middle schoolers for the rest of the episode, just pummeling them in his kitchen.
You want to make fun of me because I've got a master stairway in my kitchen? I'll kick your ass. Can we talk about that? Why is the master stairway in their kitchen? Who designed this house?
Well, yeah.
Sitcom houses are never.
Yeah, you never question a sitcom house.
They're like every sitcom has two sets of stairs too, which I have seen once in my life. But this kitchen reminded me of another kitchen. I wish I'd written it down because now I can't think of it. The Nanny. It kind of reminded me of the Nanny kitchen.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd have to see it again. It's been a while since we
That's a
covered
side
it.
by side.
I need to like, I'm trying to go through like just like fucking random bloody archive brain footage. And I'm thinking like, I want to say like a show we need to cover eventually, like the Sister kitchen may have been somewhat similar too.
For the Nanny, too, this is also a very similar sassy maid / butler scenario.
True, yeah.
So yeah, but maybe it would have benefited from like, maybe while they were still in the classroom, transition and being like, they're all making fun of him for being rich. Instead of walking out on him, he's like, oh, you want to see my house? You want to have something to eat? Like, invite them over. Like, make it like capitalize.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like, you want these things? Like, see what I have. And then maybe if you listen to me, you could have them too. Like, just something to like make sense for them to be
Anything
there.
to stop them from completely getting out of that classroom. Just to extend that scene to get them to the house.
Because, yeah, for them to all abandon him and then the next time we see them, they're at his house was just like, the transition was really awkward. So they're all in the kitchen now. George's kids run into the kitchen and like Juanita makes like a comment about like, go upstairs and lock the doors. And he's like, hey, be nice. Like these kids all go to like, your mama's school. And the daughter's like, Daddy, I'm hungry. He's like, oh, you're hungry? He's like, all right, let's make something to eat. So now this is going to be like, hey, kids, you guys all hungry too? It's like, yeah, one of the girls like, I'm always hungry. So it's like, all right. And he's telling everyone like, all right, well, I'll cook, you help clean, you serve. And he's like trying to like get everyone involved. While this is going on, by the way, we can see Lathan like sneaking off into the living room, which We'll talk about that in a second.
Yes, we will. Also, there's, again, not the best quality rip of this. We have what we have. Does the one girl say he's like a one-man SWAT team with a built-in helmet?
Yes.
It's because looks like he has all this SWAT
So
gear
his
on.
head. Okay,
I think it was like a making fun of his head thing again.
I think it was making fun of his head and calling him fat because he's thick.
Okay, I was just like trying to make sure that was like the line because it was really hard to read, and I kept like rewinding it, being like, "Is she saying built-in helmet?"
So while all these jobs are being given out, Maurice is like, "Hey, what about me?" Listen, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not doing it, but it's tough to not do the accent every time.
Do not do the voice.
Yeah, I can't do it. Can't do it because he's actually like half Mexican. If the role was that of a white person pretending to be Mexican, I feel like I could get away with doing it. But in this case, I cannot do the accent. So he's saying like, "Hey, what about me?" One of the other kids like, "You serve because I don't serve." It's like, all right, then you don't eat. George's like, "You don't eat then." The Don's like, "I'll help cook. I like to cook." She's like, so, and she can't. Nick, was it you who said earlier she can't act? She can't act for shit, but she was adorable.
But they're sweet.
She was cute for sure, yeah. But at the second she opened her mouth, I'm like, oh God, shut up.
So they're all like getting to work, and that's and Juanita makes like a line like, "You better feed all these guys before Maggie shows up. She's not gonna like this." And as sure as that happens, Maggie walks in with Lathan, who she found in the living room.
He was away for maybe 2.7 seconds.
Yeah,
total.
he's not away that long. And it's like, hey, I found him in the living room. He says you brought him here. They make it a point to show him like sneaky, like move off. Like, shouldn't he have tried to do something bad? Like stole something, had something on him. Like
he should have like a candelabra under his shirt or something.
It should have been. I caught him unplugging our VCR because it's 94.
Yeah.
Caught him stealing out of George's ice cream.
Yeah, it's just like he sneaks into the living room and there's no payoff to it. They make it a point to show him sneak off just to be in the living room. Like, I don't want to help cook. Is that what we're supposed to believe he's doing? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
How dare you be in our living room?
Yeah. So now Maggie wants to sidebar with George. So they leave to go to the living room real quick. And all like the kids gather around Juanita, like almost to intimidate her.
George comes back to Juanita dead on the floor.
Yeah. And she goes, "I was raised on a farm in Kentucky. I've slaughtered hogs and gotten candy for it, if you catch my drift." Like,
I do like that the kids all walk away scared, but this is like a scene from Death Wish 2.
it is funny because it does like show like the contrast of like where you grew up. You know what I mean? Like all these kids think they're bad, and she's like, "I've murdered animals in cold blood for candy when I was a child."
That said, I can't tell if a man shoves his cake in a pie and says he's a woman. Otherwise, this is what we're doing.
So now we're in the living room, and this goes back to what Ferg was saying, because she's the one who like could be retired, can't just live off of George's money and not do anything. She feels the need to work at the school and like be a help. And then when he's doing something, it's like, oh no, like I want to help, but like not like in my house help. Because now she's like, "George, these kids all have rap sheets. You have them playing with the cutlery."
All I could think of is that they must either go to a knife sharpener or have just bought a butcher block, because we have a bunch of really sharp knives in our house too. And I'm pretty sure if like a burglar came in and was like, "I'm going to stab you with this butcher knife," I'd be like, "You should probably sharpen that first. This thing is not going to cut through much."
Did you notice the knives he has? They're Ginsu blades.
They do mention Ginsu, yeah. Do you think that's product placement? Do you think Ginsu was like, "We want a piece of that"?
Maybe he met them at the infomercial place where they were filming.
Selling deforming
Yeah,
grills.
it might be like that might be the same distribution company or whatever. Yeah.
Isn't that a type of knife, not a brand?
It's
No,
a brand. They're just chef knives.
Oh, I thought that was a...
But they were the ones that could cut through. They could cut through a can.
I don't think that's a knife type.
I think it's the brand. They cut through like for like a can, or like they always show like them cutting through like a leather shoe.
The kind of like this whole conversation going on between the two is about how he wants to make an impression on these kids. She's like, "Well, what's your plan?" He's like, "I don't really have a plan yet. It's just mostly I just think that being around these kids is going to help."
It is a brand, by the way.
Yeah.
And then she's saying like, these kids have seen things that you've never seen before. Like, not that he's never seen before, but like they've dealt with so much that like yelling at these kids isn't going to do anything. Like you can't punish these kids because like nothing's worse than like what they do in their day-to-days, you know?
Just give up on them, George. Come on.
Basically, yeah. She's saying like,
It's not even that though. I think it's like a really good line because she's like, their home lives are so terrible, which at least gives you the excuse of like why they're here. It's like, look, going home sucks for these kids. That's why they're here, even though they're being shitheads. Like, this is actually a little bit of good writing where she's like she's still, the character makes no sense because
that was not planned as good writing. That was
yeah, it just like happened to be. But like, if their lives at home are bad, they don't want to go home.
No, in fairness though, because after she talks about like that stuff is when he's like, hey, that's a good idea. And that's when he's like, give me an hour. And then like he goes back into the kitchen. And now that's when you flash to the whole thing with like him handing like the kids the Ginsu knives and like giving all these kids like responsibility. Like I know he divvied up work earlier, but it is almost like he's trying to give them a sense of home life now. Like in this, like, hey, I trust you here. Like, you know, and it seems to be like that from what we're seeing, you know, without much buildup, but we're seeing a little bit of a turning point with some of these kids because of how he's treating them in the house.
He's like Georgie Warbucks.
Yeah, he's turning it more into like you are welcome in my home, not just like you're visiting here, but like you're part of this now.
I feel like I needed more for the kids' turnaround.
Sure, yeah, I think there needed to be like more of a moment. Like you start getting there like with some of the stuff that happens like later with Leighton, but like yeah, it just like it was like almost out of order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say though, what he says, just give me 1 hour. He closes the door just like John Lovitz closing the curtain in The Wedding Singer, and I laughed so fucking hard at that.
They also needed to show a little more of T getting bossed around by Lathan. They showed it once where he leaves the classroom with him, but this needed to be drilled in throughout the episode. So when he says no to him, this was a big moment. So it's like it really doesn't matter as much because they didn't show that he's his lapdog as much as they should have.
Maggie walks in now. She sees like everyone getting along and like things working out, and she's talking to George, and he's basically saying like, "Oh, I'm just showing them something I knew how to do," and like so like, you know, teaching them how to cook. So like something as simple as that. You know, everyone's kind of moving along, and things seem like pretty cool, and that's when like Lathan just kind of like snaps. And he just doesn't like, I guess it's like, he's probably comes from a background where, he doesn't have like anyone to look up to. And then like anytime he probably gets close to someone, they probably disappoint him. So now he's seeing someone extend the olive branch. So his wall's up. So he's fighting against it.
It's so hard for me to not think of him as his character in The Wire in this scene. You're like, oh, I get it. Avon's going to turn on him.
I get the idea that either his dad died or his dad walked out on them because he seems to get triggered by the whole, I'm not your son. I'm none of your sons. Everyone keeps calling me son.
Which is something you'd think they would have elaborated on at this point, but they don't.
Yeah, I mean...
But they give you the big meatball hanging out there too, though, where he like walks out and the rest of the kids at the end are like, we're with you, George. So like, you don't even keep this kid for episode 1. You think you'd... Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, he's coming back.
Yeah, so maybe it was formatted wrong, where maybe like the show needs to like some of this stuff maybe happens earlier in the episode where he could like have his turnaround later, so it's within the. It's tough.
See, the proper way to do it is he needed to be the one that George won over, which the other kids all follow him because he got Lathan. Like,
no, I don't know. I think there's a point where maybe he needs the wake up where he's the only one fighting at some point, and you realize like, why am I the only one? Like, I think it could work out in this situation too.
I do kind of like that. Like D is like, I'm not going with you, man. Like it does separate out the rest of the kids and make you, I guess, realize that he's like the tough nut to crack you have to do for Lathan.
Yeah, because this whole like situation, that we're talking about is him being like, I'm out of here, forget this, and telling D like, come on, let's go, and that's like D saying, you know what? Like, I like this. Like, and he keeps saying, like, I'm not your dog. Like, which is, like, I'm not just going to follow you every time you tell me to come. But yeah, that wasn't necessarily established. I guess we always look at it as, because even when you look back earlier in the episode, as I think about it, it wasn't so much Lathan doing all the shit talking and him just standing there. It was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, they needed to show that more, that he was doing all the shit talking. Like,
they were very much equals, like every scene. They were like kind of giving stuff. It was just that Lathan was a little rougher, once we got to the classroom scene.
Also, Gordo, are you upset you wasted your D's nuts joke after Joe just said D was the tough nut to crack?
No, because you know why? Gordo throws them in where it doesn't belong, and when they're lobbed at him like that, they always go right over his head. He doesn't catch those ones.
Also, now that you mention it, like Gordo will hard edit it back into this and cut you out.
The audio doesn't match at all. It's like you can hear like an echo in the background. Yeah.
A plane flying over.
D's nuts is a tough nut to crack.
Also, at this point, too, George's wife just leaves.
She's like, fuck
the
this.
second it gets a little bit hairy,
Well, no,
she's just like, fuck this. Okay, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say the kids. She's taking the kids upstairs. Send them upstairs, put them in their rooms. They'll be fine. You are a guidance counselor at the school that these kids go to. Shit's going sideways, and you're just going to leave. This is the fourth time you've just been incredibly shitty at what you do. And oh my God. We've had plenty of irredeemable characters on our podcast in these sitcoms. She is up there though. Like
she's like a villain, dude.
She is, yeah.
One of the things that always like trigger me in shows or like in real life that like, so when I see it in a show, it bothers me too, is like, I'm always like, I really don't like when things interfere with the innocence of a child. So like, you know, like I've always gone over like, you know, like we're coming right off of the Christmas season and like, you know, toys and Christmas, I don't want like kids get to be kids for like a small amount of time. So like, I don't like when things ruin that. So then like you have this daughter who's the most innocent girl in the world. Like, I like to cook. Can I help? I like cracking eggs. And then you have like this dude like freaking out and having like a spaz fest in the kitchen. You go like, she's too young to be around that. I don't like that stuff. Yeah, like I don't like her having to catch shrapnel as this guy's like fucking screaming in the kitchen when she's like, I like to make cookies. And like this shit happens.
But also, you feel safe for sure.
We didn't even like he throws a glass like on the floor. It's just like
shithead move.
That's when she leaves with the kids. That's when she dips out as soon as he smashes something.
I will say though, when I was like a menace when I was younger, we'd go into like weird like BU or BC college parties. One of my favorite things ever to do was just like start taking all the pint glasses out of their cabinets and smash them on the ground.
You're an asshole.
Such a douche.
So if anyone like ever like, because I used to have fairly open parties like at my old apartment where like it was mostly our friends and stuff, but like some of the bigger parties I didn't know everyone there. If anyone ever did the shit you did in my house, I would have fucking killed them.
I was always able to sneak out. No one noticed.
See, I told you it was Joe that put the mac and cheese in your toilet.
I was much more into the buttering of the floor in front of the fridge. That's when you can actually watch and be like,
somebody
what
fell and
happened?
got hurt. You're an asshole.
Don't wear high heels to a fucking party, man. You're gonna
What
slip
are
on
you,
the floor.
fucking Dennis the Menace? I put butter on the floor and people slid across.
Now, though, as an adult bordering on 40, I'm like, oh man, I feel so bad for all of these things. I feel like most of my life now as an adult is like making penance for all the terrible things I did.
I feel like anytime I talk to anyone I knew from when I was younger, I always like have this need to be like, hey, I know I was an asshole.
Like, we're cool, right? Yeah.
It's in me like every time I see someone now. So yeah, anyways, so he breaks this glass. George is kind of like, okay, like clean it up. He's like, no. He's like, you're not my boss. He's like, you're not my boss. And like they kind of going back and forth about it.
Was anybody else confused here where he clearly smashed a glass and George is like, pick up the cookies? Like, what cookies did he throw on the ground? He threw a glass on the ground.
I said that to myself too. I was like, I didn't see any cookies. It looks like he just
You know why?
smashed glass.
Because in the script it was probably kid throws plate of food they just made, and then they changed it because they didn't want to make food. But George just went by the script because he's
and no
not
one
an
caught
actor.
it. Yeah.
And Tony Danza was like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Keep going.
I know it's not the point of the show. Like, it's supposed to be he's compassionate. He stays cool with these kids because he came from where they came from. I was just waiting for him to pick up this kid by his shirt with one hand and just show, like, I'm bigger than you.
He kind of corners him. Yeah, he corners him a little bit against the cabinet. I think, like, that's the first time he's showing a little bit of a physical dominance on him.
Because he scared his children. That should have been the trigger, which made him knock this child out.
He's also a very strong, tough man who's historically famous for beating people up. Like, I feel like he's pushing him a little too hard.
Yeah, the last person I would want to piss off is a professional boxer.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, so you punch for a living? Cool.
now George is like I said, he kind of like backs him into the cabinet. He's like, you want to act like a man, you're welcome to stay here. If you want to act like a fool, then you can go and do that somewhere else. He's like, you want to blame the world for all your problems, go ahead. But like, at some point you have to stop being a crybaby about it and blaming everybody for all of your problems. And like, gives him the whole thing. And this is late to be like, come on, dude, let's get out of here. And like, and then one of the girls like, yeah, D, jump. Like, so I guess like they do egg him on a little bit. And this is him saying like, no, I'm good. Like, I want to stay. And like, he's looking at everyone else. And one of the girls like, yeah, I'm hungry. Like, I want to eat. And I think he has a pool.
I'm going to give old Baldy a shot.
Yeah. So they're all kind of like, you know what? Like, this isn't so bad. Like, let's just ride this out and see what happens. Because they're just hanging out at the dude's house and they're going to eat and hang. Like, it's like, what's there to be so upset about? But I just think, again, it's like his attachment issue. So now Lathan's like, he just feels like, he's being set up to be hurt by someone. So
he's just ruining it before it gets ruined.
He should be thinking, oh, cool, we have a rich friend.
Yeah. So,
yeah, right?
Like, this dude's going to make us pizza or chicken parm. Why don't we hang out?
No, he's going to make him eggplant pie.
Like, she has the right call. He probably has a pool. Like, go enjoy that pool.
I wish I had a friend who had a pool. So Lathan leaves. And then you get like Juanita pokes her head out like she's been hiding this whole time.
I do like the Juanita like reemergence is pretty funny.
And then she's like, is it safe? And then one of the kids is like, yeah, old Baldy here is scared him pretty good. Maurice is like, show the man some respect. That should be Mr. Baldy.
And then we get some more George like face acting.
And that's it. That's how they end it.
Next week on Mr. Baldy.
The show just ends. It happens.
It just abruptly ends on that. Like, it should be Mr. Baldy. Oh, America. The credits are running.
Oh, it was so bad.
Although we did get the, if you watch it on YouTube, you do get the ABC TGIF commercial for Where I Live, the Dougie Doug show.
Yeah, I definitely was like,
Right? Mental note taken.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't you pan the line down the front of your head and look like a butt? It's like all I can think of.
Think are you dead?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was the whole pilot episode of George.
No, you got to discuss the credit scene. Yeah, because they can't end it on a good note. They have to have the wife bash him one more time. They have the scene where he's innocently sleeping in his chair with his daughter sleeping on his chest, and she gets all mad about it.
She's like, you lazy, fat, terrible, bald dad. And he's like, baby, sleeping. Why are you yelling at me right now? I hate you almost as much as my students. Why do I do this job?
This guy made a difference in these kids' lives for the first time ever when she's fucking ripped them off, but she's mad. Still mad
It's funny because like the show doesn't play into any contention between the two, but he can do no right.
Be.
No matter what he does, she's mad. She's mad if he sits home all day, and then she's mad when he leaves the house. Like, she's like, hey, I work this job and when I could be retired because like helping these kids serves a purpose. And he's like, all right, I'll help the kids. She's like, don't let these kids in the house. Like, no matter what he does, it's the wrong move.
At least he's like right here in the beginning when he's like, why don't you play hooky from work and have sex with me? It's 10 a.m. and I've been eating ice cream in my Zubas. And she's like, no, you're like at least on her side for that one moment in this episode. Like, I don't want your sweaty fucking sweatpants lactate dick right now, dude. Just go do something.
I'm not on her side, all right? She hit the lottery with her rich husband who got the shit kicked out of him.
I think every one of us in this room would be so happy for rich husband.
So so this is that's the completion of the episode. I don't have like any other information on this show. There's not a lot on it. It didn't last very long.
There's like nothing. There's no trivia on IMDb for this show, which is I don't think I've ever seen that before. There's always like one blurb at least about something like, oh, when this was filmed, the set caught fire.
Yeah, I didn't do like a great like scour the internet. Like, if I really had time, I'm sure there are some old dying articles somewhere on Lost
Anything
Internet.
we could have used, we discussed organically. Like, we could have talked about Tony Danza.
Tony Danza being a producer is about as crazy of a fact as you're going to get on this one.
Yeah, we went Sidney Poitier. We didn't talk about Lillian Vernon, which is still a catalog.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
that's
know
true.
what that is.
So, that was a catalog he was reading in the beginning.
Oh.
But, yeah, I mean, no need to stretch it. It is what it is. We're talking about George. I'll go reverse order. Gordo, starting with you.
In 100 195? Today, 95?
I believe
Somewhere,
so, yeah.
somewhere around there, yeah.
In 195 episodes, I
94.
have never. Okay, in 194 episodes, I have never once fallen asleep because I was bored at a show. Never fucking once has that happened to me. Aliens in the Family, fucking every other dog shit show that we've
The only show he remembers we've covered in 194 episodes.
My brain is a little broken, okay? You know, I'm trying to think of bad shows, and we've done so many. That's the first one that popped up. Either way,
You defend that show constantly. How dare you?
No,
Having
Homeboys
finished
in
this
Outer Space
history.
is what he defends.
I think he
Oh, I
greenlit
guess it's
both,
true.
but regardless.
I did greenlight both. But still, I've never fallen asleep that many times, and I'm not tired. So this is like this might be one of the worst shows that we've done by Gordo standards. This is the worst show that we've done. This is it. This is the apex.
Yeah.
Devilman, you were
Surf
wrong.
dudes without it.
You were wrong too. California Dreams is a fucking amazing show.
So either way, cancel. Gordo fell asleep, cancel.
Nick,
I said it at the top of the episode. George Foreman's really endearing. I like watching him. The rest of this show is just garbage. And that's not even to say it's you know, we've seen why Gordo's wrong is that like there's like a checklist that you need to go through to be like really that bad. This is acted well. And I would argue that I was going to say it's written well. It's not written well. I feel like there's huge chunks of this story missing that could make this better for sure. And they just didn't care to put it in for some reason. I don't know what was going on with this. I do not even kind of care to see the next episode. There's nothing enticing me to keep going. Sorry, George. It's a big, bold, easy cancel.
I'll jump in. So yeah, this is interesting because to kind of tail off what Nick was saying, it's not even so much bad writing. There was bad writing, but the dialogue was kind of simple. It was like bad storyboarding. It was like the flow of the show and the transitioning. Like it just, I don't know. I mean, I guess that tails into bad writing, but yeah, it was just, I don't know. They just didn't focus on like, how do we get from A to B? And that's the stuff that really kind of bothered me was like the lack of attention for that. Because like, I get it. You're really just resting on the idea that, hey, George Foreman is going to be the star of the show. And that's great. But like, that doesn't mean we can't put some quality around it and then really build it up. With that in mind, I think the show is not great, but I'm still going to give it a green light because I love.
Why?
You're turning it to Joe.
I know, because Joe's become evil. Joe cancels a ton of shit now. This is, I don't know. It's just, would I
What are you,
watch another
balancing
episode?
out the universe?
I would watch another episode. That's what it comes down to. Like, I would watch more of it. And it's like, maybe it's because of hindsight and knowing this, like, less than 10 episodes, but like, yeah, I would watch another episode of this. It's like, I wasn't bothered by it. Like, I don't know. It's enough for me. And like I said, it's, I don't know. And this doesn't kind of fit into like, I think it was, you know, with Hardball from a couple weeks back, I had said something along the lines of like, the gimmick will get me sometimes. So if it's like different, it's like, I'm definitely way stricter when it's just a typical family sitcom and like, it's the same as everything else and it's cookie cutter. When it's a little different, like I give it a little bit of a pass. If it's enough to like raise my eyebrow, and I just like a classic sitcom. So, I mean, fun little goofy 90s sitcom with George Foreman. It was good enough. He's funny in it. You know, there were some good jokes in there. Yeah, the show was kind of shitty, but I don't know. I would keep watching it. So, green light. And I'm probably going to be the only one, but regardless, Ferg.
Yeah. Although I don't agree with Gordo that it was the worst show we've ever covered, it's definitely top 10 of the worst. I was a real clock watcher. I could not stand the wife's attitude and her idea of the, like how she was with the children. Does not make her very likable. George is endearing. There's a reason why he's can sell grills and tires, and you just fucking love the guy. He's great. That's not enough to sell a show that's written so poorly. I have a strange feeling this was 2 episodes and they had to cut it down because it being 24 minutes and there's just all these scenes where like, how'd he get the kids there? How'd he change it? I'm thinking this was much, much longer and they cut it down to 24 because there's just either really bad writing or there's a lot missing that went on the cutting room floor. So because of that, like I said, I'm with Gord. I was very bored. So it's a cancel for me, but hey, your grills get the green light.
Joe.
I love George Foreman, and I think he's very charming in this, and I think he's charismatic, and I think he works himself in a sitcom. I do not agree with Gordo. This is top 10 bad show. We have covered way worse than this, but I'm going to base my greenlight or cancel on historical context. If this show succeeded, George Foreman would not have started training again and then done this crazy underdog story of winning the championship again in his 40s. If this worked, he would have kept doing this show, and we would have lost that insane kind of amazing, triumph of a guy coming back way older than he should. Because of that, I feel like I have to cancel it, because we would have lost this very interesting story. I mean, the show is also bad, but like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's a kind of an interesting thing. Like, this stands in the way of Father Time telling George Foreman he can beat up some young people again. And
I'm
that's,
sorry, I didn't know we were voting with our time machines again.
I always vote with my time machine.
I'm sorry, that's coming from the guy who just said it was really shitty, but green light.
But I'd watch it. That's what it comes to. Like, it's garbage. I would watch.
If I had a time machine, I would have voted for you to start watching it earlier so we could have started this episode on time. But I am canceling this episode. George Foreman, though I love you, though I love D'Angelo, though I love Barbara from Abbott Elementary, this is not a good show, and it's a cancel.
Well, with that in mind, unfortunately, we have 4 idiots. So only 1 out of 5 this week. Sorry for George. You do not live on to see another episode with us. I want to thank everyone for listening. Again, S1E1pod.com is where you can find all the links to all our social medias, everywhere you can follow us. Give us likes, subscribes, all that fun stuff, comments. That really does help boost us in like algorithms and shit. So the more you engage, the better. Share our stuff. Let people know we exist. Hit us up, talk to us. We love all that stuff. Going into next week, we're going to have our January episode, so we'll catch you with some of those. So, just more incentive to, interact with us, and then, maybe next year you'll be able to take part in something like that. But until then, we'll catch you next week. Thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best set of trap for your sister, that toilet.